on the chapter. So we're on chapter 3 now, the invitation. In the last one we just introduced to Harry Potter, and he was getting ready to go down to breakfast. His skull was hurting, etc., and he's been trying to find the answers, and he's wrote a letter to Sirius. So now we'll just go into the next chapter. So, chapter 3, the invitation. By the time Harry arrived in the kitchen, the 3 Dursleys were already seated around the table. None of them looked up as he entered or sat down. Uncle Vernon's large red face was hidden behind the morning's Daily Mail, and Aunt Petunia was cutting a grapefruit into quarters. Her lips pursed over her horse-like teeth. Dudley looked furious and sulky, and somehow seemed to be taking up even more space than usual. This was saying something, as he always took up an entire side of the square table by himself. When Aunt Petunia put a quarter of unsweetened grapefruit onto Dudley's plate, with a tremendous "There you are, Diddley darling," Dudley glowed at her. His life had taken a most unpleasant turn since he had come home from the summer with his end-of-year report. Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia had managed to find excuses for his bad marks. As usual, Aunt Petunia always insisted that Dudley was a gifted boy whose teachers didn't understand him, while Uncle Vernon maintained that he didn't want some swotty little Nancy boy for a son anyway. They also skated over the accusations of bullying in the report. "He's a boisterous little boy, but he wouldn't hurt to fly," said Aunt Petunia tearfully. However, at the bottom of the report there was a full, well-chosen comments from the school nurse, which not even Uncle Vernon or Aunt Petunia could explain away. No matter how much Aunt Petunia wailed that Dudley was big-boned, and that his podgus was really puppy fat, that he was a growing boy who needed plenty of food, the fact remained that the school outfitters didn't stock knickerbockers big enough for him anymore. The school nurse had seen what Aunt Petunia's eyes, so sharp when it came to spotting fingerprints on her gleaming walls, and in observing and coming and goings of the neighbours, simply refused to see that, far from needing extra nourishment, Dudley had reached roughly the size and weight of a young killer whale. So, after many tantrums, after arguments that shook Harry's bedroom floor, and many tears from Aunt Petunia, the new regime had begun. The diet sheet that had been sent by the smelting school nurse had been taped to the fridge, where it had been emptied all of Dudley's favourite things, fizzy drinks and cakes, chocolate bars and burgers, and filled instead with fruits and vegetables and the sorts of thing that Uncle Vernon called rabbit food. To make Dudley feel better about it all, Aunt Petunia had insisted that the whole family followed a diet too. So now, past a grapefruit quarter to Harry, he noticed that it was a lot smaller than Dudley's. Aunt Petunia seemed to feel that the best way to keep up Dudley's morals was to make sure that he did, at least get more to eat than Harry. But Aunt Petunia didn't know what was hidden under the loose floorboards upstairs. She had no idea that Harry was not following the diet at all, the moment he had got wind of the fact that he was expected to survive the summer on carrot sticks. Harry had sent Hedwig to his friends with pleas for help, and they had risen to the occasion magnificently. Hedwig had returned from Hermione's house with a large box stuffed full of sugar-free snacks. Hermione's parents were dentists. Hagrid, the Hogwarts gamekeeper, had obliged with a sack full of his own homemade rock cakes. Harry didn't touch these. He had too much of experience of Hagrid's cooking. Mrs. Weasley, however, had sent the family owl Errol with an enormous fruitcake and assorted pasties. Poor Errol, who was elderly and feeble, had needed a full 5 days to recover from the journey, and then on Harry's birthday, which the Dursleys had completely ignored, he had received 4 superb birthday cakes, one each for Ron, Hermione, Hagrid and Sirius. Harry still had 2 of them left, and so, looking forward to a real breakfast, when he got upstairs, he started eating his grapefruit without complaint. Uncle Vernon laid aside his paper with a deep sniff of disapproval and looked down at his own grapefruit quarter. "Is this it?" he said grumpily to Aunt Petunia. Aunt Petunia gave him a severe look and then nodded pointedly at Dudley, who had already finished his own grapefruit quarter and was eyeing Harry's with a very sour look in his piggy little eyes. Uncle Vernon gave a great sigh, which ruffled his large bushy moustache, and picked up his spoon, and the doorbell rang. Uncle Vernon heaved himself out of his chair and set off down the hall, quick as a flash, while his mother was occupied with the kettle. Dudley stole the rest of Uncle Vernon's grapefruit. Harry heard talking at the door and someone laughing, and Uncle Vernon answered curtly. Then the front door closed and the sound of ripping paper came from the hall. Aunt Petunia set the teapot down on the table and looked curiously around to see what Uncle Vernon had got to. She didn't have to wait long to find out. After about a minute, he was back. He looked livid. "You!" he barked at Harry. "In the living room, now!" Bewildered, wondering what on earth he was supposed to have done this time, Harry got up and followed Uncle Vernon out of the kitchen and into the next room. Uncle Vernon closed the door sharply behind both of them. "So?" he said, marching over to the fireplace and turning to face Harry, as though he was about to pronounce him under arrest. "So?" Harry would dearly love to have said. "So what?" But he didn't feel that Uncle Vernon's temper should be tested this early in the morning, especially when it was already under severe strain from the lack of food. He therefore settled for looking politely puzzled. "This just arrived," said Uncle Vernon. He brandished a piece of purple writing paper at Harry. "A letter about you." Harry's confusion increased. He would be writing to Uncle Vernon about him. Who did he know who sends letters by postman? Uncle Vernon glared at Harry and then looked down at the letter and began to read it out loud. "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Dursley, we have been introduced, but I am sure you have heard of a great deal from Harry about my son Ron. As Harry might have told you, the final of the Quidditch World Cup takes place next Monday night, and my husband Arthur has just managed to get prime tickets through his connections at the Department of Magical Games and Sport. I do hope you'll allow us to take Harry to the match, as this really is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Britain hasn't hosted the Cup for 30 years, and the tickets are extremely hard to come by. We would, of course, be glad to have Harry to stay for the remainder of the summer holidays and to see him safely on the train back to school. It would be the best for Harry to send us your answer as quickly as possible in a normal way, because the Muggle postman has never delivered to our house, and I'm not sure he even knows where it is. Hoping to see you soon, yours sincerely, Molly Weasley. P.S. I do hope we've put enough stamps on." Uncle Vernon had finished reading, put his hand back into his breast pocket and drew out something else. "Look at this," he growled. He held up the envelope in which Mrs. Weasley's letter had come, and Harry had to fight down a laugh. Every bit of it was covered in stamps except for a square inch on the front into which Mrs. Weasley had squeezed the Dudley's address into the minute writing. "She did put enough stamps on then," said Harry, trying to sound as though his Mrs. Weasley was a mistake anyone makes. His uncle's eyes flashed. "The postman noticed," he said through gritted teeth. "Very interested to know where this letter came from, he was. That's why he rang the doorbell, seemed to think it was funny." Harry didn't say anything. Other people might not understand why Uncle Vernon was making a fuss about too many stamps, but Harry had lived with the Dursleys too long not to know how touchy they were about anything even slightly out of the ordinary. The worst fear that anyone would find out that they were connected, however distantly, with people like Mrs. Weasley. Uncle Vernon was still glaring at Harry, who tried to keep his expression neutral. If he didn't do or say anything stupid, he might just be in for a treat of his lifetime. He waited for Uncle Vernon to say something, but he merely continued to glare. Harry decided to break the silence. "So, can I go?" he asked. A slight spasm crossed Uncle Vernon's large purple face. The moustache bristled. Harry thought he knew what was going on behind the moustache. A furious battle as two of Uncle Vernon's most fundamental instincts came into conflict. Allowing Harry to go would make Harry happy, something Uncle Vernon had struggled against for 13 years. On the other hand, allowing Harry to disappear to the Weasleys for the rest of the summer would get rid of him for 2 weeks earlier than anyone could have hoped. And Uncle Vernon hated having Harry in the house. To give himself thinking time, it seemed, he looked down at Mrs. Weasley's letter again. "Who's this woman?" he said, staring at the signature distantly. "You've seen her," said Harry. "She's my friend Ron's mother. She was meeting him at the off the school train at the end of last term." He had almost said Hogwarts Express, and that was a sure way to get his uncle's temper up. Nobody ever mentioned the name of Harry's school aloud in the Dursleys' household. Uncle Vernon screwed up his enormous face, as though trying to remember something very unpleasant. "Dumpy sort of woman," he growled finally. "Load of children with red hair." Harry frowned. He thought it was a bit rich of Uncle Vernon to call anyone dumpy, when his own son Dudley had finally achieved what he'd been threatening to do since the age of 3, and become wider than he was tall. Uncle Vernon was perusing the letter again. "Quidditch," he muttered under his breath. "Quidditch? What is this rubbish?" Harry felt a second stab of annoyance. "It's a sport," he said shortly. "Played on broom." All right, said Uncle Vernon loudly. Harry saw with some satisfaction his uncle looked vaguely panicky apparently. His nerves wouldn't stand the sound of the word broomsticks in his living room. He took refuge in perusing the letter again, and Harry saw his lips from the words, "Send us your answer in the normal way." He scowled. "What does she mean, the normal way?" he spat. "Normal for us," said Harry, and before his uncle could stop him, he added, "You know, owl post. That's what's normal for wizards." Uncle Vernon looked as outraged as if Harry had just uttered a disgusting swear word. Shaking with anger, he shot a nervy look through the window, and though expecting to see some of the neighbours with their ears pressed against the glass. "How many times do I have to tell you not to mention that unnaturalness under my roof?" he hissed, his face now a rich plum colour. "You stand there, in the clothes Petunia and I put on your ungrateful back." "Only after Dudley's finished with them," said Harry coldly, and indeed he was dressed in a sweatshirt so large for him that he had to roll back the sleeves 5 times so he was able to use his hands, and which fell past the knees of his extremely baggy jeans. "I will not be spoken to like that," said Uncle Vernon, trembling with rage, but Harry wasn't going to stand for it. Gone were the days when he was just forced to take every single one of Dursley's stupid rules. He wasn't following Dudley's diet, and he wasn't going to let Uncle Vernon stop him from going to the Quidditch World Cup. Not if he could help it. Harry took a deep, steadying breath and then said, "Okay, I can't see the World Cup. Can I go now then? Only I've got to letter to Sirius I want to finish, you know, my godfather." He had done it. He had said the magic words. Now he watched the purple recede blotchily from Uncle Vernon's face, making it look like badly mixed blackcurrant ice cream. You're writing to him, are you?" said Uncle Vernon, in a would-be calm voice, but Harry had seen the pupils of his tiny eyes contract with sudden fear. "Well, yeah," said Harry casually. "It's been a while since he heard from me, and, you know, if he doesn't, he might start thinking something's wrong." He stopped there to enjoy the effect of these words. He could almost see the cogs working under Uncle Vernon's thick, dark, neatly parted hair. If he tried to stop Harry writing to Sirius, Sirius would think Harry had been mistreated, and if he told Harry he couldn't go to the Quidditch World Cup, Harry would write and tell Sirius he would know he's being mistreated. There was only one thing for Uncle Vernon to do. Harry could see the conclusion forming in his mind as though the great moustache face was transparent. Harry tried not to smile, to keep his own face as blank as possible, and then, "Well, all right then, you can go to the ruddy, this World Cup thing. You write and you tell these Weasleys they're to pick you up, mind. I haven't got time to go dropping you off all over the country. And you can spend the rest of the summer there, and you can tell your godfather, tell him you're going." "Okay then," said Harry brightly. He turned and he walked towards the living room door, fighting the urge to jump in the air and whoop. He was going to the Weasleys, and he was going to watch the Quidditch World Cup. Outside in the hall, he nearly ran into Dudley, who had been lurking behind the door, clearly hoping to overhear Harry being told off. He looked shocked to see the broad grin on Harry's face. "That was an excellent breakfast, wasn't it?" said Harry. "I feel really, really full, don't you?" laughing at the astonished look on Dudley's face. Harry took the stairs 3 at a time and hurled himself back into his bedroom. The first thing he saw was that Hedwig was back. She was sitting on her cage, staring at Harry with the enormous amber eyes and clicking her beak in the way that meant she was annoyed about something. Exactly what was annoying her became apparent almost at once. "Ouch!" said Harry. What appeared to be a small, grey, feathery tennis ball had just collided with the side of Harry's head. Harry massaged his head furiously, looking up to see what had hit him, and saw a minute owl, small enough to fit in the palm of his hand. Whizzing excitingly around the room like a loose firework, Harry then realised that the owl had dropped a letter at his feet. Harry bent down and recognised Ron's handwriting, and then tore open the envelope. Inside was a hastily scribbled note. "Harry, Dad's got the tickets. Ireland versus Bulgaria, Monday night. Mum's writing to the Muggles to ask you to stay. They might already have the letter. I don't know how fast Muggles post it, though I'd send this with pig anyway." Harry stared at the word pig, then looked up at the tiny owl, now zooming around the lampshade on the ceiling. He had never seen anything that looked less like a pig. Maybe he couldn't read Ron's writing. He went back to the letter. "We're coming for you, whether the Muggles like it or not. You can't miss the World Cup, only Mum and Dad reckon it's better if you pretend to ask their permission first. If they say yes, send Pig back with your answer pronto, and we'll come and get it at 5 o'clock on Sunday. If they say no, send Pig back pronto, and we'll come and get you at 5 o'clock on Sunday anyway. Hermione's arriving this afternoon. Percy started working in the Department of International Magical Cooperation. Don't mention anything about abroad while you're here unless you want the pants bored off you. See you soon, Ron. Calm down, Harry said, as the small owl flew low over his head, twittering madly with what Harry could only assume was pride at having delivered the letter to the right person. Come here. I need you to take my answer back. The owl fluttered down on top of Hedwig's cage. Hedwig looked coldly up at it, as though daring it to try and come any closer. Harry seized his eagle feather quill at once more, grabbed a fresh piece of parchment and wrote, Ron, it's all okay. The Muggle said I can come. See you at 5 o'clock tomorrow. Can't wait, Harry. He folded this note up very small, and with immense difficulty tied it to the tiny owl's leg as it hopped onto the spot with excitement. The moment the note was secure, the owl was off again. It zoomed out the window and out of sight. Harry turned to Hedwig. Feeling up to the long journey? He asked her. Hedwig hooted in a dignified sort of way. Can you take this to Sirius for me? He said, picking up his letter. Hang on, I just want to finish it. He unfolded the parchment again and hastily added to the postscript. If you want to contact me, I'll be at my friend Ron Weasley's for the rest of the summer. His dad's got his tickets for the Quidditch World Cup. The letter finished, he tied it to Hedwig's leg. She kept unusually still, as though determined to show him how real post owls should behave. I'll be at Ron's when you get back, all right? Harry told her. She nipped his finger affectionately and then with a soft swooshing noise spread her enormous wings and soared out to the open window. Harry watched her out of sight and then crawled under his bed, wrenched up with the loose floorboard and pulled out a large chunk of birthday cake. He sat there on the floor eating it, savouring the happiness that was flooding through him. He had cake and Dudley had nothing but grapefruit. It was a bright summer day. He would be leaving Privet Drive tomorrow. His scar felt perfectly normal. And he was going to watch Quidditch World Cup. It was hard just now to feel worried about anything, even Lord Voldemort. And there we go. And that's the end of chapter 2. So, good night everyone.